You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey everybody, did everybody recover from Halloween? Halloween's not over. It's not over yet, right? There's still Halloween going on, which is crazy to me. Rachel and I went to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios a week after Halloween. And then at the end of this week, we're going to Delusion, which is arguably the highest rated smaller haunted attraction in the whole state. So Halloween has been stretched out to the breaking point this year, and we couldn't be more happy. We couldn't be happier. Which is better? We couldn't be happier, or we couldn't be more happy. I'll let you decide. So it's a great episode coming up. I had the pleasure of going to what used to be called Kamikaze, and has now changed its name to, I think the full name is Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. So they went from Kamikaze to Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. And I wonder what George Carlin would have to say about adding that many syllables. But thanks to my good friend Scott and his amazing and legendary client Elvira, we went out to Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. Also, I had the pleasure of being on a panel on Sunday with my good friend and the amazing, uber-talented Chris Gore. You know Chris Gore from Attack of the Show, DVD Doomsday. He just relaunched Film Threat via Kickstarter. Film Threat was the coolest movie magazine back in the late 80s, early 90s. I hooked into it because, I'm a movie nut. And when I met Chris, the first time I met him, I said, "Would you sign one of my copies of Film Threat?" And he was like, "Oh my God, you have this?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm a movie guy." And it was the issue all about Red and the Tube Bar, because Chris made a movie about the Tube Bar. Now, if you don't know what the Tube Bar is, that's a whole episode in itself. Red and the Tube Bar, one of the funniest audio cassettes ever created, known to man. Chris turned it into a really funny movie starring Lawrence Tierney from Reservoir Dogs. So Chris is a great guy, funny guy, really, like I said, super talented, makes props, makes little movies, writes movies. He's the writer of My Big Fat Independent Movie. He's a jack of all trades. And he had a panel on Sunday at the Kamikaze Comic-Con Stan Lee Los Angeles entitled, "What kind of parenting does the Skywalker family represent? Are they the worst parents in the known galaxy?" So I was like, yes, we have to talk about that. So it was me, Chris Gore, Matt Keil, who actually was a executive producer at G4. Guy knows everything about Star Wars and movies. He knows a lot about the prequels, which I was blown away by, because as a big Star Wars fan, I really don't know a lot about the prequels because I just don't watch them that much. I saw them in a theater and I've watched them a couple of times at home, but I haven't studied them. So that does, I can't be an expert on them. And Matt, God bless him, he's an expert, man. He knows everything about the prequels. And then we were also joined by Jenny Nicholson. Now, Jenny Nicholson, even though she's younger, she has a YouTube channel where she makes videos all about Star Wars, and they're hysterical. And Chris discovered her via YouTube. So I'll put all the links in the show notes. But Chris is like, "You've got a voice. Let's talk Star Wars." So we all got together in one of the meeting ballroom places at the Los Angeles Convention Center. And for an hour, we just talked about Star Wars in the geekiest, nerdiest way, most amazing way possible. A room full of people. It's one of those things where you get people together like that and you just get an energy. You just get an energy about Star Wars and how great it is to be a fan. And it couldn't be a better time now because Star Wars fandom is so accepted around the world, more so now than it ever has. So big thanks to Chris Gore for putting this panel together, for putting a great group of people together, and let's check out what transpired at the Stan Lee Los Angeles Comic-Con.
Welcome to Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. You guys having a good time? My name is Chris Gore. I'm the moderator of this panel, which is Star Wars Dysfunctional Skywalker Family. Because everyone here is a veteran of one war. We're veterans of Star Wars. I'd like to introduce, before we get into it, our esteemed panel here. Matt Keil. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I used to work at G4 and X-Play for many, many years, which is how I know you. And these days I'm doing the podcast stuff for Sifted.net, which is a video game site started by another ex-G4 person.
Cool. All right. Jenny Nicholson.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Nicholson, and I make videos that are related to Star Wars and movies and superheroes and things like that. So, yeah, that's
Cool.
it.
And Jeff Tucker.
Hi, I'm Jeff Tucker. I host a podcast called 91 Reasons, and I've done hours and hours and hours on Star Wars. I can sit down at a microphone and an hour later and still be talking about Star Wars.
Well, let's begin talking about Star Wars. Okay, so we're going to go through all 7 of the films, and we're going to talk about the dark side. And the real dark side, which I happen to believe is bad parenting in the Star Wars universe. Kylo Ren is a victim of space divorce. What do they call marriage in the Star Wars? Do they even call marriage, what is marriage even called in the Star Wars universe?
I don't
It's
think
something like creepy and culty, like Jedi Union of Souls or something.
That sounds like what it would be.
Something eerie that you wouldn't want to be a part of.
But let's start at the beginning. Let's start talking about episode 1. A single mother is raising a boy born of something, a miracle. He's forced to work retail in a junk shop. I want Republic credits on the Voodoo of the United, something more real. If anyone needs a Watto voiceover, I'm happy to do it for your video game or cartoon. Okay, so let's talk about Anakin and how this whole thing began. Could it be that being plucked away from his mother had something to do with him going to the dark side? I want to hear from everybody here. And I know that, Jenny, you're a huge fan of Padme. We'll get into Padme.
Yeah, I love Padme. She's the best character.
Well, yeah, look at what happened. Look at what happened. Qui-Gon Jinn shows up, and he's rigged the chance cube to roll on the color that he wants, and he doesn't make a deal to get the mom.
Yeah,
The mom's got a bomb in her neck,
Expensive.
right? And he's like, no, we only want the kid. I work for Neverland Ranch. We're taking him with us right
Tries, but
now.
Watto says no.
What's that?
He tries, but Watto's like,
He
I know,
doesn't
but-
argue. He's just
No
like,
pot is
I'm
worth two
trying
slaves.
No pot is worth 2 slaves,
I
right?
can't do the Watto impression, so I'm not
They
going to
really didn't, why did he not, look, he basically risks his life in this rocket thing in a race that he shouldn't be running. It's totally child endangerment to make a kid do that, right? But I want to help them. and then,
That never worked when I was a kid.
yeah, you can't help get the mom? How does this affect?
Well, the mom is such a bland character. She has no emotion.
What's she mean?
Oh, she's terrible. She has,
Skywalker?
yeah, her line is like, he can't help you. Like, that's the whole line. He can't help you. It's like, hey, I've got groceries to bring in. He
But
can't
also,
help you.
Qui-Gon's playing hard on his lack of father figure there, I think.
Right.
Like, he's taking advantage of that, basically, because they find it's like, oh, he's like a superpowered virgin in the Force. We're going to do. Also, that was always one of the plot holes for me. Was like, you have actual empirical evidence that this kid is basically a nuclear force bomb, right? And you don't just Jedi Council doesn't just go out free the mother and set her up in a nice apartment in Coruscant just in case. the thing that's more powerful than Yoda happens to kind of have a homesickness episode. Like, just seems like...
Well, the
I know that's
Jedi's-
not the rules of the Jedi, whatever, but it's like, hey, you're playing with fire here, you might as well do something.
The Jedi's imply that doing that's like a lot of paperwork. You know what I mean? They're like, nah, he's too old to be trained. But he's the Force concentrated. Yeah, he's just a little too old. Thank you. Next kid. Like, it's so random.
Jenny, I'm really curious what you think, because we do have the bitter old white men really well represented on the panel. But you grew up with the prequels, so maybe you see them differently. In fact, there was a documentary that just came out called The Prequels Strike Back. Has anyone seen it? And it's made by a kid. He's in his early 20s now, but he was young when the prequels came out and then grew up and discovered the internet and discovered everybody hated the prequels, but he sees it differently. It's a documentary I highly recommend. I'm in the documentary. But
Full disclosure.
I'm wondering, do you see it, Jenny, do you see it differently, like having grown up with the prequels? Did it make a bigger impression on you?
No. I mean, like, it's like you're young and you're watching it, and I think at that age you don't question. Like, you have to get to a certain age before you realize it's okay to just not like movies. But, like, at that age you just watch a movie and you're like, oh, I didn't enjoy it. I guess I don't like Star Wars that much. And that's just where you're at. You don't acknowledge, like, maybe that wasn't a good Star Wars movie. But, yeah, it kind of felt like, oh, I guess Star Wars is just like, people fight and they don't have interesting characters and that's just what they do. And I also liked Jar Jar Binks because you can tell when something is made for you and you're like, oh, this is my character. I guess this is the one I like, and I'll get like a doll of Jar Jar Binks or something. But no, he's kind of terrifying looking at the same time.
Well, see, like, George Lucas only recently came out and said that Jar Jar is based on Goofy.
Oh, no.
Did you hear
No, but also, like, full disclosure, I think Goofy's a little scary, but that makes so much sense because, like, at Disneyland, Goofy is, like, 6'8" or something. And that's, like, part of why he's so scary and doesn't work as, like, a kid's friend for Jar Jar is that he's way too tall. He's like a big, scary monster with long limbs and, like, detailed eyes.
That's true. I remember when that movie came out and there was, like, people complaining about how Obi-Wan is always looking, like, past him above it.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm like, no, his eyes are, like, way up here. Like, that's really where, if he's looking him in the eyes, he's really looking at, like, 7 feet up.
Him in the
Yeah, he's huge.
So Anakin is plucked and taken away to be trained by the Jedi. And this doesn't go well. So let's jump into episode 2. Where Anakin's
Let's not forget that in the original script of episode 1, there is a line where Anakin says, I'm probably going to marry her someday. When he meets Padme. Which is like, this kid has a very strange view on relationships already.
In the original script, actually, there is also a line where there's a suggested romance between Padme and Obi-Wan, which would have actually made a lot of sense because it's kind of a Camelot, a fall, like setting up that love triangle.
I always thought that's what was going to push him to the dark side.
That didn't pay off. It was, and when you get to Revenge of the Sith, it's sort of a Three's Company misunderstanding. Like, hey, you. But
like Yoda, Mr. Furley.
Exactly. Doing that face, that like goofy face. Do or do not. There's no try. But let's get into episode 2 because Anakin really becomes a creeper. I mean, he's right,
oh, he's the worst boyfriend ever.
Yeah. So let's talk about
Yeah.
what is this romance? And go down the line. All of you.
Go ahead. Romance. Well, it's great because the romance in it is so stupid when they're rolling around in the ground, and it's almost as if there's a porn director going, "Roll some more, roll. That's good. Keep rolling." And then she's not even keyed into the fact that he's basically a serial killer in the making. It's like the unaired episode of Dexter featuring lightsabers. Because he comes in and he's like, I got my dead mom on the back of my motorcycle and I killed all those sand people. And she's like, well, what's wrong?
He's worried about his feelings.
Yeah, what are your feelings?
That make him feel bad.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Are you okay? And the whole thing is like, she's teasing him with revealing outfits that get more revealing as the film goes on, right? She starts off in like a big dress, and then she's in like the dominatrix outfit, and then the midriff bearing outfit. The whole time she's like, look, I can't be with you, but here, look at me. It's very strange.
I like the desert midriff outfit that like goes all the way like as high up as it can. It's like the biggest midriff she could like manage, and that was to meet his parents. To go out into the desert and meet Anakin's parents.
Right.
But she wore like a huge cape over it, so that makes it okay.
Well, yeah, you gotta cover your head.
But as long as the midriff is still out in the occasion.
Well, yeah, it's Star Wars.
Cover
there's,
your
like-
neck to be like demure about it.
What about on Coruscant when like she's like, don't look at me like that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. He's like, sorry, milady. It's like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
Red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 is when the guy you might be sort of thinking about dating is talking about how he should be all powerful.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
just
And
mad all
like
the time with his
you're no, he doesn't do anything to earn that relationship. I don't
No.
think.
Oh no, it's very forced.
Well, yeah. Or
And she's
very
like, well, we're probably
boring.
gonna die, so why not? You know, like, and then they don't die, and you gotta wonder if she's like, oh, now I gotta go through with this whole thing.
Jenny, you have some opinions about Padme.
I do. She's my least favorite Star Wars character. I think that she doesn't have a lot to her to explain why she does the things she does. She just kind of does whatever the scene calls for. Like, oh, now it's like a fight scene, so I guess she'll fight because that would be pretty sexy. And like, and now she has to be like something that needs to be protected because that's pretty sexy right now. So it's just Anakin's dream girl at any given time. And yeah, there isn't really a lot to Anakin. And I love when people say things like, well, what about the fanon that he like controlled her mind with the Force? And it's like, that would be cool if that was in the movie, but it's not at all. So I guess like I'll enjoy your fanfic where that happens, but it doesn't help the movie at all.
Well, there's that weird line that's like right before the big arena scene where she's like, "I love you. I've loved you since the." It's the strangest delivery of that information, which I don't
It's like
understand.
she just got here from a different movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And then someone explain to me, can anyone on the panel explain to me, why did they get married at the end of episode 2? Other than that had to happen for the story to progress, but why do they marry? I mean, it's people get married for all sorts of reasons. Crazy drunk in Vegas.
Yeah. It's like if we're going to do the secret thing that's forbidden by the Jedi Council, we should definitely leave a paper trail.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
so, but can any of you explain and address why did they get married?
There's no like urgency. There isn't like a time deadline, and like why can't they just have forbidden dates secretly for longer first? I don't know.
I think it's because you can't like have her get pregnant
Exactly.
and have a kid without them being
It's a
married.
family movie.
Yeah,
She
it's a
has to
family
get
movie.
married.
Right. My explanation would simply be that George Lucas has no idea how humans actually live.
This too.
You know, he stopped being a human the day Star Wars came out in the theater.
More machine now than man.
That's right, twisted and evil.
And like she needed to wear a nice wedding dress too.
Right.
Wear a pretty dress.
Yes. Our lives are defined by our boundaries. Like, if I want something, I have to work for it. If all the boundaries were taken off and everybody in the world said yes to you, we'd all be as warped as Tom Cruise, right? So, Lucas is just warped. He has no idea how real people live. So he's like, well, I guess they're going to get married now so they can have a child. And that's just the way it goes. That's just the movie. You know, you introduce your characters, you put them in a tree and throw rocks at them and you get them down the tree. So this is just, he's following the script line. They have to have a kid, right? So to have a kid, they have to get married. It's just ridiculous.
What I like about your impression and real George Lucas is he sounds like defeated every time he makes a story decision. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I got married, and people do. I'm just like, yeah, okay.
They rhyme. Poet marriage.
But it's weird because they have this secret marriage. They're never Spacebook official, so to speak. But, okay, you can groan because that was terrible. That was one of the worst jokes. Let that be the worst joke told on this panel. But like, so the movie, that ends, and then we pick up with Revenge of the Sith, and they're still keeping this a secret, even though Obi-Wan kind of suspects. I mean, I just don't. What I'm trying to figure out through the prequels is how does, like, they only use the word like girlfriend. I think is girlfriend first used in episode 7?
2.
Episode 2?
Episode 2, Owen calls Beru his girlfriend.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
That's so
This is my
weird.
girlfriend Beru, which I always thought was weird because I'm like, that seems like a very Earth word for that. It seems like, if you're going to call it children younglings, you got to come up with a spacey word for girlfriend, right? Like I don't know, at least call her like my intended or something. It seems like she lives there already and she's like trapped. Like I don't know where they got Beru
It wants to
from.
be like clear.
I wanna know the
that he's
backstory on
casual
that.
At that point, you know, he's not committed yet.
Jenny, you're good at
No.
you're good at coming up with Star Wars names for things. Is there
Okay.
what would be like space girlfriend, space wedding,
You would
space
call
divorce?
yourselves like soul bonded or something.
I would call it
Yeah.
power coupling.
That's good.
That's my power coupling. This one goes here, that one goes there.
Yeah, well, if you have not seen Jenny's videos on YouTube, you definitely want to check it out. There's one in particular where you talk about naming Star Wars.
Star Wars names, just putting random sounds together.
Yeah.
There's a couple in that video that are actually better than a lot of the official ones.
I think so. I was proud of my villain names. We have like Ominous Quash, Rickshaw Purge, and then like aliens and stuff, like Kibo Kingpo. That's a good Gungan name.
Yeah, you could if I ever need to fill a cantina with tertiary characters that someone needs to write a short story collection about, I'm coming to you.
Oh yeah. I'm ready.
And where did Jimmy Scrambles come from?
I just thought that would be like a great hero name for Star Wars. And then, obviously I used him again for the villain names section, so I thought that Jimmy Scrambles would have a lot of complexity. Maybe turn to the dark side later.
See, when I was a kid, the best Star Wars names actually came from Kenner. The Kenner names for the characters were 10 times better than when Lucasfilm finally named them. Like, Yakface is a perfect name. They're like, no, he's Saleh Murray.
I don't like the names that are
Hammerhead, man. Like
Hammerhead. Lomon Nadon. No, he's Hammerhead.
But some of the names are like, I think one of the worst names is Porkins. I mean, that name...
It's in the movie. It's unfortunate, right, yeah. Yeah, the fat guy's named Porkins. Yeah.
They tried to make up for it in the...
Not a great
No, well, they tried to make up for Porkins in 7 by calling the fat pilot Snap Wexel, which is much snappier, literally snappier. I think that's what they're going for.
So let's talk about episode 3, right? So now they're in a secret space marriage or power coupling, whatever you want to call it,
which Obi-Wan totally knows about. Right. Like he plays it, and like at the end he's like, "Is it Anakin's?" Of course it's Anakin's.
Then he goes, "I'm so sorry.
So sorry that you had to live years with that crazy weirdo."
But so first of all, how do we explain all this? I don't think it's I feel like the things that happen in the movie are kind of happening because they have to happen for the story, but it's not really motivated much by the acting or the dialogue.
No, it's more motivated by the events of the Clone Wars TV series. Really, that's a much more interesting...
You're concentrating on the human beat, which is the problem. The movie is a series of action sequences interrupted by, here's some human stuff again. That's what it is.
Well, here's a question that I like to ask, and I actually want to ask the audience. Please raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and I'm going to ask you guys up here on the panel the same question. Why did Anakin turn to the dark side? Okay, now answer it in a very simple phrase or just less in a sentence or very simply. Why did Anakin turn to the dark side right there in the front? To save Padme. Okay, right there in the back.
Shmi was murdered.
Shmi was murdered. Okay. Other ones, other answers right there, sir.
They have cookies.
They have cookies on the dark side. Good answer right there.
Hunger for power. Prevent any future loss of anybody close.
Prevent the future loss of anyone close. Right there, yes.
Desperation/stupidity.
Desperation/stupidity. Was there a hand in the back? Okay, here's what I love. I think you're all right. You're all correct. But the thing is, there isn't a clear answer as to why he goes to the dark side. And I feel like that's a problem. I'd like to hear what you guys on the panel say. Starting with Jeff and come down. Why did Anakin turn to the dark side? The simple answer.
Merchandising.
Peer pressure from Palpatine.
Yeah.
He respected
You want to be cool, don't you? Wear black.
He may have been compelled by Palpatine because Palpatine's the only compelling performance in the prequels. Every scene he's in, Ian McDiarmid just owns that screen. And he doesn't really, bring me over there in that final scene where he's like, "I'll do anything you ask." It's just like, it's almost like Hayden Christensen was just tired.
But I think that's a problem for the prequels. What the whole story of the prequels is, how did this person go to the dark side? And the fact that the answer is kind of all over the place, I think is an issue. And I'd like all of you to address that. Anakin turning the dark side was the whole purpose of making 6 hours of screen time, or 6.5 hours, or whatever. Why that answer being vague, I think, is an issue. And you can't explain it with fanfic or the novelizations or fan theories.
No.
My least favorite headline I read on the internet is, "This fan theory about blank is really brilliant." It's never brilliant. It's always stupid.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think?
Well, the problem is, from the get-go, we don't care why he turned to the dark side. The fact that he's Darth Vader, he's a badass, is what we care about. Anytime film has tried to give us a backstory for a villain, it never works. Didn't work with Hannibal Lecter, didn't work with Michael Myers, didn't work with any of those characters. We want to be a bad guy and just be a bad guy. If you try to humanize him, we lose our fear and our awe of him. The whole prequels are leading up to him putting on that suit and screaming no like Frankenstein, and it's completely unsatisfying. Completely unsatisfying. And if you're talking about dysfunctional families, Palpatine steps in as the father figure there, and he's the worst father ever. It's like letting Uncle Buck babysit forever. You know what I mean?
Jenny, what do you think?
Well, I think you could do a good story about Anakin. I mean, it's dumb that that's what he picked, because I feel like you could do a better story about something else. But if someone was like, this is what we're writing, and we have to do it, like, it's possible to make it interesting. Kind of the weirdest thing is they had 3 movies to explain it. They failed to explain it. Part of that is because the whole first movie, none of that mattered at all. So, like, you could just take out the Phantom Menace and not have it be there, and just have the second 2, because, like, you meet him when he's 10, and then when you meet him again, he's like a teenager. He's no longer like a plucky kid. He doesn't resemble the kid at all. He's just like angry all the time and like embittered, and it's like nothing you saw before informs anything.
Unless they had treated Star Wars like the Omen. And it made him like made him the devil from the beginning. I kept waiting for that in Phantom Menace. I kept waiting for him to do something that would indicate, oh, he's a bad seed.
Or made him like a withdrawn, like he's a kid that doesn't have any friends, but like you feel bad for him because he's so little.
Like
if you see that something's gonna happen.
If he's a little goth kid on Tatooine, right? And he's at like the really hot topic, you know, where his 2 sons, and he's like buying all the Fallout Boy shit, and like, hey, this guy's bad news.
And he just wants to play his computer game.
Yeah.
And the kids pick on him, and you're like, I sympathize with him, and I can also tell he's going to turn evil.
Right.
See, I would have gone the other way with it, and that to have it be an actual tragedy, because he's trying to tell a tragedy there. Mm-hmm. And that only works if you admire or that the person that falls is admirable and noble or heroic. And Anakin's just sort of a whiny jerk. And when he kills all the sand people, you're like, wow, that's probably not cool. And then he's having all those issues in Revenge of the Sith, and he has a little like psychoanalysis session with Yoda, and Yoda's just like, let go of it. It's like, dude, your nuclear weapon Jedi kid is like losing his mind over here about a hypothetical attachment like, dude, like you need to start having this get followed. Like,
I like in the prequels, like Jedi can tell you're like volatile and have all these like negative feelings, so they like call you into a boardroom and like berate you for your feelings, and they're like, I solved the problem, go on, Anakin.
Can I see you in my office, Anakin?
Your fear and anger is bad, and you should be ashamed. Now take your lightsaber and go fight some people.
Yeah, they give you like the equivalent like Jedi corporate buzzwords. It's
right. It's like
drill down on your Jedi feelings.
You a lot of fear in your performance this quarter.
Like Office Space. Like, I'm going to need you to come in and do Jedi training on Saturday. And if you could do that, it'd be great.
What would be a Star Wars day name?
Oh, it'd be like called like Moon Day or something stupid like that.
They want me to come in on Moon Day, and I won't do it.
Moon Day's my most favorite day.
You've got to do what the council says, and I'm going to come in on Moon Day.
But is part of the point that George Lucas is trying to make is, I mean, Anakin had a screwed up upbringing, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the Jedi Order failed because you're basically training these little children, the younglings. I was always that word always got me, the younglings. Mm-hmm. So is this part of his point that not having an intact family, not having that father figure, like that's what drove Anakin to the dark side?
I don't know about that, but I think
I'm saying I don't know. I'm trying to explain George Lucas. I'm not saying that.
No, I think Lucas maybe is more on the level of not necessarily divorced family is bad, because he is a divorced parent, you know. But I think he might have been trying to say in a really vague way, because the Jedi Council approaches everything with the same set of rules, and it's like you can't treat all these different Padawans the same way. You have to modify your style for the individual, and by not doing that, that's basically what drove Anakin away from them. And there is a very strong undercurrent of the fact that the Jedi Order was broken, refused to understand how to fix themselves, and by the end of Return of the Jedi, Luke has synthesized sort of these different ideas of both the Jedi Order and being an actual human being into more of a workable idea, although Episode 7 does seem to indicate that did not work out too well either.
Right. Well, let's actually jump from the prequels now to the middle trilogy, or the first of the 50 Star Wars movies that are going to be made in the next 50 years.
I'm most interested in this one in terms of this conversation because I think Owen and Beru get a raw deal.
Well, this is the thing. If you think about it, in terms of goodness, the characters that have the most goodness, or the light side, are, Leia and Luke, and they were both had adoptive parents, right? Intact, at least as far as we knew. They die, at least in the first. In Star Wars, did they ever say anything about Leia's parents?
Oh, yeah, they were
on
Alderaan.
They were on Alderaan, but is it ever directly addressed?
No.
Not really.
She seems kind of upset, but...
That scene, and then the very next time we see her, she's in the cell when Luke comes in and she's laying down. She's like arching a little short for a stormtrooper. It's like, my parents are dead, everyone I've ever known is dead, but I'm like cracking jokes if the Nazi stormtrooper just came in to
Star Wars
probably take me to be executed.
Fun fact, that scene where Luke enters the prison, he said, "I'm Luke Starkiller, I'm here to rescue you." They had to reshoot the scene because George Lucas changed the name to Skywalker from Starkiller. And the reason I know all these dumb, random Star Wars facts is a book that actually Matt recommended to me I highly recommend, called The Secret History of Star Wars. It's an absolutely brilliant book. It's a book that I would recommend you get the audio version of, because the guy who reads the book does all the voices. So he does like George Lucas's voice, and he also does like
the dead-on Lawrence Kasdan.
He does
which no one can do. Yeah. Like, who knows what Lawrence Kasdan?
George wanted to have a bunch of Ugnaughts, and
no, but he does Gary Kurtz. He does everybody involved. He even does like Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill. It's an incredible book. It's 24 hours of this audiobook. I learned more about Star Wars and whatnot from that book than anything I've ever read.
And from that book is where I get my kind of my interpretation of Owen, where I always kind of felt like Owen knew more than he was letting on. Like Owen, because Beru's like, oh, he has too much of his father in him. Like it's a charming thing that he has too much of his father. Whereas Owen's like, that's what I'm afraid of. And of course, we think now it's like, oh, well, he knows that Anakin went bad, and he knows. But when they shot that movie, the Darth Vader is Luke's father thing was not. Lucas didn't come up with that.
Decided yet.
We didn't come up with that until the second draft of Empire. And so at the time, the backstory was that Anakin and Obi-Wan were the same age, grew up together on Tatooine, went off on some damn fool idealistic crusade, and Anakin got killed, and then his kid had to be raised by his brother, Owen. And Owen also knew Obi-Wan growing up and thought he was an idiot because Owen is a down-home farmer, and that's why they have the conflict, and he's just a crazy old wizard to him. So from Owen's perspective, he's just trying to make sure that Luke doesn't go off and get himself killed like his brother did. Really, that's one of the most responsible things anyone in the Star Wars series does.
Right.
Period. Like he is from his perspective trying to do the right thing, and that's why he's a compelling character to me in that regard, because that's pretty good parent. I mean, he's trying to prevent him from having an interesting life, but to Owen, that's what caused his brother to die.
It might have been one of the few examples in the films of what would be good parenting. So,
and by the way, that's a way more interesting backstory than what we got in the prequels. It's like two best friends growing up and getting into these things that are way over their head, and one of them goes crazy.
Well, let's talk about this middle trilogy. Is my premise accurate, at least in terms of they kind of had intact families that went away and then they can go off on their own adventures? Jenny, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it's difficult because if you look at the Jedi raising people, then that does really confirm your hypothesis, because it's like Anakin is the only Jedi that we saw go bad from that order, and he's also the only one that was partially raised by his own parents. All these other kids were raised in this clinical Jedi Academy environment, and instead of being warped by that, they all were we're good Jedi, I don't know what his problem is. So it's the moral of the story is don't let parents raise their children for too long, or they'll turn evil and kill everybody.
Or if you do, the brainwashing probably won't take when
That's
you're
true.
around 9.
Don't start Jedi too old is the
Yeah.
moral of those entire 3 movies.
Yeah.
So-
Where's the Galactic Child Protective Services and all that?
Yeah.
I remember being shocked by the too old thing in episode 1 a little bit, because I remember Yoda says that Luke's too old. And I thought, well, yeah, he's like 20.
Oh, yeah, that's old.
But I was like, oh, 10's too old? Like, when did it start? Like, I didn't expect the Jedi to turn out to be a bunch of baby kidnapping weirdos.
Yeah, is it like
What are you
learning
doing,
to,
George?
Is it like learning to play the piano? You've got to start at a really young age? Is that like, I don't get it.
Really youngling age.
A youngling age. Okay, so I think we can move on now to episode 7 and beyond. What is going on with episode 7 and Rey? She was orphaned on this planet, right? So we should talk about, I think, the two, Rey's upbringing and Kylo Ren's upbringing, but let's start with Rey. Jenny, you have a hysterical video that you created in which you play both Luke Skywalker and Rey. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you really go in depth about that theory that, you know, Luke is Rey's father, but then you talk about if that's true, then you know, your video explains that.
Yeah, basically my hypothesis with the video was like, or my thesis statement, I guess, was that if Rey ends up being related to anyone that's not dead, we can't like that person anymore. Because Jakku is like the most hostile place you could leave like a 6-year-old girl. She easily could have died. She could have been like beaten up. She probably did actually starve for like a long time. And, you know, and the fact that like, oh, you seem to have survived, like that's not really an excuse. Like that it just happened to work out okay. So I kind of just detail the different perils that Rey had to encounter. Like, she never learned to read. She just got like beaten up by aliens and they took all her stuff pretty much all the time. She like fell off of a ship and broke her legs, and just like all of these different things that were bad about growing up on Jakku, and how there's really no excuse for her parents to leave her there and know that she's there and not come back, especially since if it's any one of the 3 like major characters like Han, Luke, and Leia, they all seemed like they were doing pretty okay while Rey was on Jakku. Even if they could ostensibly be like, no, we were in danger, we were being hunted. It's like, no, you look like healthy. You aren't like starving, you're in like a nice base, you're in like an island paradise, so seems like you could have just taken Rey with you and had been okay.
And not only that, think about like, is this what happens with Jedi, the good, the Force, and the universe? Like when stuff goes bad, they just go to swamps, or you know, they go to
they could send her to that tropical planet from Rogue One with like the palm trees everywhere.
Yeah.
So they just sort of
badass that live in there.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
they disappear when the going gets tough. I find that hard to believe that
Yeah,
Luke
Luke
would
got
have.
sad and he left.
Well, I have my own
Sad.
idea of what I think happened to her, because I think you're right, that if it's one of the main characters abandoning her on Jakku, we are not going to like them anymore.
No.
So my theory is that she was a kid at the Jedi Academy, and Kylo Ren ditched her there because he couldn't bring himself to kill her.
I think that's an okay
Because he struggled. I think Kylo Ren's a really interesting villain because he's a bad guy who struggles with wanting to be good. And like if that was kind of his like downfall, is like he wasn't committed enough to evil to like kill a child, and instead just ditched her on the desert planet. And she came back because he knows her.
Yeah.
When they like he and Snoke know who like they're like, oh, the girl, like they. And he's like it is you or something.
But how
like
much
that.
older is Kylo than Rey?
I think the Bloodlines might have debunked
Yeah.
that theory. I haven't actually read the
I haven't
Claudia Gray
read that
book,
yet, no.
but I heard that it said that, like, in Bloodlines, he's not bad yet, and he's at least, like, 17 or something, so I think that would ruin the timeline for that. But
How long
I would
ago-
like that if that was the case.
How long ago did the Jedi Academy disaster happen?
Well, I mean, it must have been
Before
after Kylo
7.
Ren turned bad, and then with their age disparity, Rey was probably like 6 to 8 when she was left on Jakku, so it just like doesn't quite line up. She would have been like too old. She would have remembered her parents.
Right.
Remember the first season of Lost, how great it was? And we were like, man, I can't wait to see. They must have answers for all this stuff. And then they didn't.
Has no answer.
It's the same guy.
Yeah. This is all up to Ryan Johnson, however they want to solve this, you know. But like, yeah, Abrams has no answers for any of it.
No, they just his thing is like, we'll just make some stuff up. It's cool. Who's this? We don't know.
I'm not going to tell you what's in it because I don't think about that.
How could you fly the Falcon? We don't know.
Well, they have flight simulators that she salvaged from Rex
Oh
in the
my God.
book.
Well, she's clearly worked on it before, too.
But so Kylo Ren, why does Kylo Ren go bad? Is it space divorce? Like what would Jenny, what would a name for divorce be in the Star Wars universe?
Oh gosh.
Power uncoupling?
That would be great. Like, you'd have to be like, I have to go to my power uncoupling proceedings. Right?
See the commercials?
Power uncoupling papers.
The commercials on the space. You need to be power uncoupled, call me now. I can get you more.
Like, it's so backwards. You probably can't get divorced. You just have to, like, leave. Or leave your spouse on a desert planet.
Yeah.
Forever.
You have to turn around in a circle and say, I divorced thee 4 times.
Maybe
It definitely seems to be Han's
route.
strategy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Han just grabs a ship and leaves. That's how
I gotta
he
go.
solves his problems.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Matt, that I think Kylo Ren is probably the most interesting character for me. It's just like a lot of layers there, and there's things we don't know, and so I'm excited to see what happens next with these characters. I think that I think obviously Rey has some issues and whatnot. Like, I want to hear you guys' speculation on Episode 8.
Episode 8.
Episode 8 speculation. Where is this all going? And there was a quote actually from Daisy Ridley where she said that like you're going to find out about.
Wait a minute, it's not Keira Knightley?
No, it's not. It's
God.
another actress named Daisy Ridley.
I had no idea.
Anyway, so she said that like the answer of like her lineage we'll find out in Episode 8. But I want to hear your speculation because Jenny, you did this video about was it Snoke or like you did? There was a theory about that.
Mace Windu being Snoke, or that one?
You should explain this.
There's a fan theory that Mace Windu and Snoke are the same character, and the reasoning there is that like they're both bald. Mace Windu hates Skywalkers, and Snoke has a scar on his head, and Mace Windu might have landed on his head when he fell 3 space floors to the ground. And then instead of his head exploding, he got a big scar on his head and turned white, I guess.
That is some next level whitewashing. Right?
I know when I just explained it, I made it sound like a really credible theory, but basically I did a video explaining why it's not a credible theory, shockingly.
Where do you read? Are these on like Tumblr? These are Tumblr posts?
Well, no, it was on YouTube, and all my friends were like putting it on my Facebook wall, and then people in the comments too, like talk about the Snoke is Mace Windu theory, and I literally thought like, oh, the guy leaving that comment is the guy that made that video, and I'm gonna click it, it's gonna have 1,300 views, and it's gonna be like, watch my video, please. But I clicked it finally, and it had 1 million views. And I was like, people love this theory.
Is the lesson here that I should just go home and make a series of videos where everybody is Snoke?
Put Star Wars...
Hammerhead is Snoke. Snaggletooth is Snoke.
Jackface is Snoke.
Uncle Owen is
Snoke is the sole surviving Tusken Raider from Episode 2.
Right. Oh my
Because we don't
God.
know what Tusken Raiders look like with their bandages on.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Rey is a Tusken Raider.
I do like the theory.
Tusken Rey.
Tusken Raider.
Raider. Oh. I think we got it.
Tusken Raider. It all makes sense.
Good work,
Look,
AJ. Plan the whole thing.
Here's what I think, Chris. I think Episode 8... look, I'm a Star Wars fan. I like going to see Star Wars movies. I'm not as excited as I used to be because I know now that it's this big corporate monster machine and we're going to have Star Wars movies. Until I'm going to be on my deathbed going, I'm never going to get to see Episode 32, right? And that makes me so irritated, right? Because I just want things to freaking, like Game of Thrones, just end it. Let me move on with my life, right? I know it's never going to end. They're going to answer a few of these questions. They're going to have 30 more questions, and by the end, like Walking Dead, like I just don't care anymore. You know what I mean? And Darth Maul will come out with a big double-sided bat and go eeny, meeny, miny, and then hit somebody in the head, and it'll be over with.
I like the theory, though, and I think that they're suggesting this, that Snoke is actually kind of Yoda-sized. He's tiny.
I like that. Yeah,
I like
really
that.
big. I want him to be an extreme size. I don't care which.
Yeah.
Like an impractical 80 feet tall.
Have you ever actively groaned at a movie screen? Like if Snoke comes out and it's like big Snoke and then like, ooh,
but it's like the Wizard of Oz, though.
Everybody would just go, come
Well, he doesn't
on.
even have to look like Snoke. It could be like a projection.
Well, I think Snoke is a projection, and it's actually Rey's mother.
What? I'm gonna
This fan theory about Rey's mother is actually brilliant. Okay,
As long as
explain
I'm
it.
making stuff up.
Okay, no. I want to hear you.
I have no evidence for that. I'm just saying.
Defend it.
I think Snoke is Deep Roy. Tiny guy.
Do you guys have your own theories? Like you, Jenny, I know you think a lot about this.
Yeah, I think Snoke is probably like just Snoke, and he's just an evil guy that has a scarred up face and is bald, and he wants power, and that's it. He's just Snoke. Snoke is just Snoke.
But in the Star Wars universe, everything is connected.
But no.
And we all learned that in 1980.
Only in the prequels. In the first one, it was just Vader.
I know, but here's the thing. In the first trilogy, we all went to the theater, and there's this moment where Lando goes, taking good care of my ship, and you're like, oh, he used to own the Falcon. Everything's connected. Nothing is by chance. Everything is connected. So Snoke has to be somebody.
Yeah.
He has to be, and we're going to get some long-winded thing about the Clone Wars and a mail-away action figure of the Emperor who happens to be Snoke, and you put him inside, and we're all going to buy it, and I can't wait for that.
And I don't think, Snoke may not be Mace Windu, but I also, we never saw Mace Windu's body.
Oh my god.
I'm not saying Snoke, but Sam Jackson.
He went a really, really long way, and his arm was cut off.
Yeah. But so did Luke's hand, and someone found that lightsaber.
Was that the dumbest part of Episode 7?
No.
When she picks up the lightsaber and all of a sudden it's like Harry Potter and all these memories are flooding into her, and you're like, oh, when did this happen? Luke didn't grab the saber and go, oh, Dad!
You just reminded me of the other theory, the fan theory I read.
Voldemort. Snoke is Voldemort.
Almost.
What's the other fan theory?
The other theory is that Rey is a reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker, and that's why when she has the flashback from touching the lightsaber, the shots from Bespin are from the POV of Vader.
And there's been talk of Hayden Christensen showing up in Episode 7, and I've already said, and I'll say it here, if that happens, I'm getting up and walking out of the theater. I want my money back.
No, okay, the actors in the prequels, well, some of them were fine. I didn't like Natalie Portman in the prequels. No, but I thought Hayden Christensen, if they bring him back, he could do okay.
Oh, can you imagine?
And
The fury.
I hate sad, it's coarse, it gets everywhere.
He didn't write that. He just had to say it. You took that line in a good way.
Let me ask a question. What do you guys want to see in Episode 8? I mean, you can sit here and we can talk theories all day, but what do you want to see? Now that they, to me, I was watching Episode 7 saying, when is Luke going to get here? And of course, I think that scene with the lightsaber where it ends up going into Rey's hands, I thought that was going to be where Luke showed up.
Yeah, would have been a better choice.
I think it would have been
the Fantasy Island shot at the end was a little irritating.
It was just weird, that sort of broken look on Luke's face.
We've never seen a helicopter shot like that in a Star Wars movie.
Unnecessary.
Yeah,
it was strange, but what do you want to see in Episode 8?
I want to see Luke cut loose.
Yeah.
I want to see.
Yeah. Well,
he's got rage issues. We know that. So I just want to see him.
I know in this
dance.
I would also be down for that.
I know in the screenwriting process, I read a lot about the evolution of the script for Episode 7. They kept bumping into the same problem. The minute Luke shows up, nobody else matters. He's the most powerful.
Because we care about him.
We care about him. It's Mark friggin' Hamill, and he's the most powerful character in the universe. So they kept having scenes where they met him halfway through the movie. There was a sequence where he had to dive underwater to the remnants of the second Death Star to get something, some sort of Jedi item, right, from the Emperor's throne room. I want to see all that, right? And the good thing about Star Wars is they keep everything, right? Nothing is left. Bespin was supposed to be the Emperor's jail in the first Star Wars, right?
Right.
Everything gets recycled. So I'm hoping that they give Luke enough to do, because I read all those Star Wars novels in the 90s, the one that Disney said didn't happen. But I read all of them, and the first thing the writer would do was find a way to neutralize Luke. Because he's like Neo in the Matrix. They can't do anything. He can just wave his hand and everybody disappears, right? So if they can come up with a way to make Luke's powers, it's like Superman. You have to defuse him a little bit, right? I grew up wanting to be Luke Skywalker, right? I want Luke to take Kylo Ren and beat him senseless and cut his head off. And what I say that is, I sat in the theater and he kills Han Solo. A character that I'm in love with. It's my bromance since 1977. And everybody's like, oh, wow. I'm like, no. He just killed Han Solo. Oh, my God.
That's why I keep saying, like, you cannot redeem Kylo Ren.
No.
No.
Why do you want to do something?
I will never forgive him for that.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts on why you
Okay,
let's hear.
Okay, here's my explanation of why Kylo Ren killing Han Solo is not as bad as Anakin Skywalker killing all those younglings. And Anakin Skywalker got redeemed. Okay, so Anakin Skywalker killed a bunch of other people's little 5-year-old babies. And that's pretty bad. And Kylo Ren killed his own father, who I'm sure if we could talk to the ghost of Han Solo and say, do you forgive your own child, he would. Because if you look at, like, real child killers who are, like, they kill one parent, the other parent, like, always forgives them. And that's just, like, how parenting works. So I think, like, killing his father, seriously.
No,
I want Leia to cut his head off.
No, okay, she can be mad, but
I want her to be really mad and pull that saber she's been hanging on to.
He's gonna redeem himself.
We're in a situation. So wait, Jenny,
because I didn't care about any of those younglings. I did care about Han Solo.
So Jenny, your theory is Kylo Ren is good because he's been tempted by the light.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So okay.
Well, I do know that at the apex of Return of the Jedi, when they're making the movie, Richard Marquand, the director, went to Lucas and said, I'm a little uncomfortable with this happy, smiling Anakin at the end of the movie, like hanging out.
Yeah, why is it Anakin?
Yeah, and you're like, he goes, because he just killed all those people, and he killed whole planets of people, not just younglings, but everything, right? He's like global warming as a person, right? And Lucas looked him right in the eye and said, well, doesn't your religion say that if you ask for forgiveness, you get it? And the guy was, I don't know if it counts there.
I have an action figure of Anakin Skywalker's ghost, and it says his special abilities are forgiveness and love.
But that's easy for Hitler to say, right? Us Jews might think differently.
Jenny, you did a video of things you want to see in episode 8.
I made a wish list. I have very simple needs. I don't need a lot from episode 8. I want fun new outfits. I want a cool planet, maybe like a space casino or something like that. I want Hux to go to jail, because I think that would be funny if instead of being killed, he was just like in a jail cell being angry. And I want BB-8 to be in every scene.
Like even like the evil scene.
All the time, even if he's not doing anything, he's just in the corner.
Can we get an evil version of him?
Hiding, and then it cuts to another character going, BB-8 was spying on that one scene that you just witnessed.
No.
Explain his presence, so it's not weird.
But what about if there's like a First Order equivalent in the same droid model? Like there used to be like the dark
That would be okay.
I really like what you had to say about limbs being cut off.
Okay.
About limbs being cut off.
Yeah, I
got
want
a
as
theory
many
about
limbs
this.
as possible cut off, because I think since you can get the cybernetics anyway, it really raises the stakes to see a limb cut off, because it's very shocking. But then you don't have to worry about the actor looking like they don't have limbs, because you just put new limbs on. So the audience gets to go, oh my God, her leg just got cut off, but like it doesn't matter because she'll have a leg in a couple minutes. So they can cut off everyone's, like all of everyone's limbs as much as possible.
Yes. Like even C-3 goes like, you didn't recognize me. I'm part of the limb club. What I'd like to see, Chris, if I get the dream, is the Heir to the Empire trilogy is arguably the best Star Wars sequels that were never made. And they own it. They own all of that. So just borrow from that. If you're going to steal from the best. And at the end, they go, look, you've got Luke's lightsaber? Yes, here it is. Well, it came with a hand. And we took the hand, and we made another Luke, and it's evil Luke. I would totally buy that.
His name is Luke.
Yeah, it has 2 U's, right? 2 U's, right?
I guess I'm the only one on the panel that thinks throwing the entire expanded universe out was the best thing Disney did.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I don't hate those books.
No, I do too, except the Heir to the Empire. Yeah. That was what brought Star Wars out of hibernation when those books came out.
I'm referring to the Zahn books. I don't like that story at all. I am glad they took Thrawn out and put him in Rebels, though, because he was a great character.
We've only got a few more minutes, so I just want everyone on the panel to address...
Mara Jade.
I want everyone on the panel to address Episode 9. And by that I mean, how do you think this trilogy is going to end? Will Kylo Ren be redeemed and come to the light side? Will Rey go to the dark side? Will Mace Windu be revealed to be Snoke? Like, how is Episode 9 going to end this trilogy? And we only got about a couple minutes, so if everyone could address it.
Okay, I'm thinking balance to the Force. I think Rey's going to be tempted by the dark side, just like Kylo Ren is tempted by the light side. And then maybe they could have like a new perfect Jedi Order where they find the balance in all of the young Jedi and teach together. It'd be fun, like Jedi School. And then you could have a Disney XD series called Jedi School.
I think Kylo Ren is going to end up pulling Rey back from the dark side.
Oh, wow.
I think that's going to be his redemption, is that she's going to fall and he's going to realize that that's not cool and he's going to bring her back. But he's not going to come back to the light, but he's going to be like, I don't want this for you.
It's funny you say fall, because I have a whole theory. I think falling is the most common cause of death of villains.
Yeah.
If you look throughout, if you look at Disney movies, if you look at Star Wars films, falling is a major cause of death of villains.
It's definitely dead, but non-gruesome. You don't have to see them get hacked up or strangled or
Except
whatever.
in Tarzan.
Yeah.
That's the real Disney
Jeff,
villain death.
Remember in Sleeping Beauty when they talk about the prick from the spinning wheel? They get rid of those spinning wheels. You think the bad guys, look, just get rid of any gantry-way, okay? I need to be on flat land from here to there. Thank you.
There is no OSHA in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Do you have a theory, Jeff?
Episode 9, yeah. I think that Finn will be so upset at being rejected at his advances towards Rey that he will become a compulsive overeater, and he will balloon up to 300 to 400 pounds, and Rey will end up in a gold bikini at his side, and all will be well in the universe.
I just want Finn to end up with Poe. Poe Dameron is my favorite character in Episode 7.
I think that, though, they set up, Finn and Rey to be a romance, and they did, because if you think about it, Luke Skywalker, he went on this journey because he was in love with a princess. Sure, it turned out to be a sister, but do you remember the line? He says, who is she? She's beautiful. He falls in love with a girl through this hologram and then goes on this adventure to, return the plans. And I think that for me, what was missing from Episode 7 was romance, unless you read Tumblr and fanfic. Then there's lots in there.
The romance in the movie is Poe and Finn. And the scene in the TIE Fighter is my favorite thing in the whole film. And I'm not done with this yet, because the Finn-Rey thing, that is resolved, because he asks if she has a boyfriend or whatever, and she says, we're busy, shut up, leave me alone about that. And he says, all right, fine, I guess we'll just be friends. And that is a lesson that I think kids could stand to learn, especially boys.
Also, there is that animated GIF that you've seen on the internet where Poe and Finn meet, and he looks down at his crotch and kind of bites his lip, yeah. So that shot alone...
Tell the whole world that we're bros, bro.
Yeah, that shot alone, I think, sealed it. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up for time. I want to thank members of our panel, Jeff Tucker, Jenny Nicholson, Matt Keil. Thank you so much. I'm Chris Gore. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ChrisGore. Where can we find you guys real quick?
MKEIL on Twitter.
At Jenny E. Nicholson.
iTunes, 91 Reasons Podcast.
Great. I want to thank you guys. Great audience here at Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic Con 2016. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Hey, that's good stuff, right? That is just an hour of really fun, nerdy, geeky talk, and that's what I revel in. So, thanks for checking it out. Again, big thanks to Chris Gore and Scott and Elvira, and to Matt Keil and Jenny Nicholson. What a great team. Rachel was in the audience helping record the whole time, so thanks to her. Thanks for tuning in. I am Jeff Tucker. We're off to Delusion this weekend. Cannot wait to check it out. Also this weekend, there is a Monster Pop art show in Anaheim, and look for an episode in a couple of days all about that art show. You would not want to miss it. Coolest thing ever. There is so much going on, so many geeky, nerdy things to do that you won't know what to do with yourself or how to get to all of them. And what a great problem that is. I'm Jeff Tucker. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?